I will start with my, I'll share the screen and then we can continue with the presentation. Just 1 minute. So I hope that this is visible to all of you. Right. Okay, so
Yes,
I
ma'am.
think, thank you so much for confirming. And I think this will be taking you back again, from what I think was there in the previous session, that the role of the principal is very, very important. And that's the reason, since, there was a lot of conversation with Dr. Rajni, where she told me that you want something on the pedagogical leadership. But I was thinking that, pedagogical leadership is one of the aspect, because as a principal you have to take care of all kinds of other requirements also into your schools. Do you all agree with it? I think if you don't want to talk, you should at least switch on your cameras once so that I can see who all are there, and you can use the chat box in between if you um, so today I thought that you do talk about the professional learning communities, but that's much more in the context of the teachers alone. But we had been discussing in NIEPA that the role cannot be very limited, because when we are talking of the professional learning communities, it's a very broad concept, and it cannot be roped into just very limited kind of the things. So with that pretext, I thought that, I will be talking about two layers. One is that how can you really create your professional learning community, since you are 30 principals at the moment, and all the 30 principals are heading the schools, which the schools with their own context, and the school context would always be giving you some kind of a concern related to whether the results of your particular school is not good in a particular subject, or do you have any special requirement in terms of keeping the students abreast with the different levels, because since you are all the secondary school principals who are joined here. So the other very important point is that also that there is a lot of focus on the being the subject experts, which most of you are yourself, because in my previous session, I came to know that all the principals in Haryana have been very actively participating in taking the sessions themselves. So that is one of the very encouraging factor, I think, which can be there. Usually what we have found is that though the mandate is that the head of the school would be taking some of the sessions, academic sessions, but due to the workload, they are unable to do it many of the time. So it could be, a very different situation in the different kinds of things. So ठीक है, आई ट्राई टू बी बाइलिंगुअल, लेकिन मुझे पता है कि आप लोग जितने प्रिंसिपल्स हैं, आप सब लोग वेल वर्स्ड है, और आई थिंक मेरा हम लोग जो बात करेंगे उसमें हम ज्यादातर, चूंकि दिस इज ऑल one of the academic programs, so I'll try to be bilingual as far as possible. But I would also request you that you should also be equally participative in the session, so that we can have the good discussions on it. So that's just one of the requests. So the other point is that when we are going to the next layer, just 1 minute, I think आप लोग इसको पढ़ सकते हैं, और चूंकि NCSL ने एक बुकलेट ऑलरेडी निकाली हुई है ऑन पेडागोजिकल लीडरशिप, तो उसमें आपको पूरे डिटेल्स जो है, इफ यू वांट टू गो इन डिटेल अबाउट हाउ यू हैव टू लुक इनटू बीइंग एन एकेडमिक लीडर, These are the aspects which you need to really look into. So I think the first important point is that, you yourself, that is the self which we all have been focusing in the leadership, is that we need to really focus on the self first. आप किस तरीके से एक कॉमन इशू जो आपको लगता है which is running through all the schools in Haryana. So it could be, for instance, if we are looking at the result of the maths subject in particular. जो भी हमारे मैथ्स के सब्जेक्ट्स के अगर हम रिजल्ट्स लेते हैं और हम जब देखते हैं कि बच्चे जो है वो बहुत अच्छा परफॉर्म कर रहे हैं कुछ स्कूल में, कुछ स्कूल्स में नहीं कर रहे हैं, तो ज्यादातर ओनर्स जो है वो हम लोग टीचर्स पे ही डालते हैं, which again I think is again a very limited way of looking at it. We need to see that how effectively we can come together on one of the platforms where we are looking at the avenues with which we will be able to create some kind of an environment, because this is what I'm going to focus more on. That will be how we are looking at the school culture as well as the learning environment, which requires to be enhanced at the different levels. So कुछ चीजें हैं जो हम एक माइंडसेट के साथ जब हम चल रहे हैं, तो कुछ चीजों का बदलाव जो है वो भी हमें देखने की जरूरत है। तो आप किस तरीके से एक ग्रुप बनाते हैं? तो सबसे पहला जो पॉइंट है वो ये है कि अगर आप 30 स्कूल के प्रिंसिपल्स अगर आप एक अपनी एक प्रोफेशनल लर्निंग कम्युनिटी एक क्रिएट करें जिसमें आप बाकी प्रिंसिपल्स को भी जोड़ सकते हैं, क्योंकि ये प्रोग्राम जो है ये आपके बाकी प्रिंसिपल्स भी अटेंड कर रहे होंगे यूट्यूब पे. सो हाउ डू यू क्रिएट दैट काइंड ऑफ अ नेटवर्क where you are able to be more effective? And as far as the peer learning is concerned, I think is one of the most important component, specifically when we are looking at enhancing the skills. So when we are looking at the process of setting up a professional learning community, तो सबसे पहली बात जो मैंने आपसे अभी कही कि पहले आप अपना एक ग्रुप बनाएं. हो सकता है कि सारे प्रिंसिपल्स जो है वो किसी एक सब्जेक्ट को जो भी नहीं पढ़ाते हैं, तो आप अपने सब्जेक्ट स्पेसिफिक ग्रुप्स भी बना सकते हैं. और आपका क्या फोकस एरिया है वो ज्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट है, क्योंकि ज्यादातर हम लोग रिजल्ट ओरिएंटेड स्कूल्स की को ज्यादा देखते हैं कि किसका रिजल्ट सबसे अच्छा है. So there could be some kind of a peer learning here, that the schools which are doing very well, or the schools which you feel that are unable to give the best of the results in spite of giving the best of the inputs, because the process is always a input and a output. So there needs to be a balance, that whatever you are putting in, it must come out into the equal manner. How we are looking at it will depend on not only the school result, but it has to go beyond in terms of the school culture also. We have been talking about that, the third level in which, when we are talking about the PLC, would be in terms of the action inquiry. Then the fourth point, which is very critical, is innovation and change. आप किस चीज को innovation बोलते हैं? Since NCR in NIEPA, what we are doing is we also have an innovation award for the district education officers, and I'm sure most of you, that is all the principals, are giving the feedback and creating an environment where you are able to look into the innovation and change. What kind of innovation and change are you really looking forward to? वो चेंज जो है वो आप एक लिमिटेड तरीके से सिर्फ एक स्कूल एनवायरनमेंट में देख रहे हैं, या आप उस पर्टिकुलर इनोवेशन को एक अवेयरनेस कैंपेन की तरह देख रहे हैं, क्योंकि आपका स्कूल जहाँ पे भी सिचुएटेड है वो आपको एक कॉन्टेक्स्ट देता है कि कौन से बच्चे आपके स्कूल में आ रहे हैं, कितना उनका एक सपोर्ट है कम्युनिटी का, फैमिली का, और किस तरीके से वो उसमें एक सपोर्ट के लिए देखते हैं. The other very important point is that you really need to look into the feedbacks. at the different levels. If your feedbacks are going to be limited, if you're only again in the one-way process, then definitely the kind of change which you're looking will again get very much limited. The other is that how are you really developing your learning? This is very important as the teachers, which we all feel कि आपकी learning एक continuous है, वो एक लिमिटेड तरीके से नहीं है। वो हर लेवल पे हर पॉइंट के बाद आप एक नए उस पे जाते हैं। एंड the other very important point is that also you have to be sharing the outcomes. Very often we do not share the real feedbacks at times. Depending one, probably there is a lot of limitation in terms of having the platforms, and also being a leader yourself. There are many times that which of course are definitely taken care of in this entire program, is that when we are looking at the leadership styles, that would also be very important to be looked into at that manner. And यहाँ पे मैं आप सबसे पूछना चाहूंगी कि आप जो कि खुद प्रिंसिपल्स हैं, आप कितने, क्योंकि एक तो व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप जो है वो एक बहुत इजी मीडियम आजकल बन गया है जिसमें हम अपनी जो भी समस्याएं हैं उनको भी डिस्कस कर सकते हैं, और जो आपने एक अच्छा एक्सपीरियंस किया है आप उसे भी शेयर कर सकते हैं. सो दिस इज अ टू वे प्रोसेस व्हिच वी फील इज very, very important. I would also request that if somebody can share their experiences, like as leaders, आप कितने प्रोफेशनल लर्निंग कम्युनिटीज को किस तरीके से आप एग्जीक्यूट करते हैं अपने स्कूल कॉन्टेक्स्ट में. टीचर्स तो डेफिनेटली करते ही है, but as principals, how many of you are a part of it? I think you can raise your hands and we can also communicate in between, since it's a training program. Yeah, anybody would like to speak? I hope you all are there. We have a strong limitation now being online now. We don't know how many people are really there. Yes. Okay, so the other context with which we are looking at the professional learning communities is, since we know that the teachers have been having very strong PLCs, and which we have been seeing in the last at least 1 decade, there has been a lot many changes which have been there. How do you really also as a leader yourself, आप कितना शेयर करते हैं उस प्लेटफॉर्म को अपनी पूरी एक टीम बनाने के लिए? दैट इज ऑल्सो वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. हाउ डू यू रियली कन्वर्ट योर स्कूल्स इनटू द वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग लर्निंग ऑर्गेनाइजेशन? तो चूंकि हम लोग जब एक प्लेटफॉर्म की अगर हम बात करें तो उसमें हमें लगता है कि देयर हैज टू बी अ वेरी वेरी इम्पोर्टेंट रोल विच इज प्लेड बाय ऑल द स्टेक होल्डर्स. आप एक स्टेक होल्डर की बात नहीं कर सकते हैं, दैट इज ओनली द टीचर और ओनली द स्टूडेंट. सिंस वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द learner centered approach now, since the learner is at the center, the learner is at the focus area, आप उसको किस तरीके से फैसिलिटेट करते हैं? और फैसिलिटेशन जो है वो बहुत लिमिटेड नहीं होता है उसका, इसीलिए हमने इनोवेशन और चेंज जो है वो एक बहुत क्लोजली लिंक करके हमने उसके बारे में बात की है. और अब चूंकि अब हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं NEP 2020 की, जिसमें अब बहुत सारी चीजें जो है वो बदलने वाली है. एक बदलाव की तरफ हम जब जा रहे हैं, एक जो स्ट्रक्चरल चेंज की बात है वो आप किस तरीके से विजुअलाइज करते हैं एज लीडर योरसेल्फ? बिकॉज you will be talking about, and especially in this particular levels, senior secondary level, आपके पास vocational education जो है वो एक बहुत important component की तरह आएगा in the coming years. How do you really see the not only the implementation but also how you will be bringing it into the forefront when we are looking at the changes at the different levels? What kind of channels will be there where we will be talking? Because we are Also talking about the school complexes now. आपने स्कूल कॉम्प्लेक्स के बारे में जब हम NEP 2020 की बात करते हैं तो जो एक स्कूल कॉम्प्लेक्स का एक मेजर कंपोनेंट है वो सिर्फ शेयरिंग ऑफ रिसोर्सेज तक नहीं है, क्योंकि शेयरिंग ऑफ रिसोर्सेज वुड अगेन would also be talking about sharing the human resources also. How do you look into it? How do you make the things more inclusive? That is something which one has to really look into. And मुझे पता है कि हरियाणा में तो you have already worked onto the curriculum, and we have seen that many of the things will be adapted in the future. So what changes in the learning culture will happen are the points which you all as leaders have to focus more on. Anybody would like to share something with respect to in the last 3 years with the NEP, how things are changing, and how do you see um, your role also changing with the time? Anybody would like to discuss that? क्योंकि अब तो हम लोग जो हमारा FLN है वो तो हमारा आ गया है, that is for the foundational literacy. But though you're looking at this, the secondary level in terms of the subject specific things, still, how do you see that those changes are going to make any kind of change in your role as a leader? Anybody would like to talk about it? Please आप अपना practitioners view भी दें ताकि हम थोड़ा सा इस session को interesting बना पाए. Anybody? क्या कोई बोलने के लिए आज I think अभी lunch time में तो थोड़ा समय है. So I hope that you all can be a part to it. Okay, I think you all have decided not to speak during the session. If that is the case, then we can, you know, continue with only the lecture mode. So I think since there are no responses, I'll go ahead with it. So I think the very important part, when we are looking at the teacher leadership is like how you're creating a platform where you are interacting not only with your own peers or the group, but also the different stakeholders, which I was saying, and specifically, how are you looking at, the student? Because students, usually have a very, big gap when they are looking at the principals of the schools. So how approachable you are, because that will also be very, very conducive when we are looking at creating a very interesting or a good environment for the children. So when we are looking at the role of the leadership again, it would be helping in improving the knowledge base, which is much more important. आप किस तरीके से कोलैबोरेटिवली काम करते हैं और किस तरीके से प्लेटफॉर्म्स क्रिएट करते हैं जिसपे आप अपने एक्सपीरियंसेस जो है वो शेयर करें. एंड since we are not looking only at the pedagogical leadership at the moment, as I have said that we have to look beyond where we are talking about the academic leadership, since there are going to be many challenges which the leaders face due to and specifically in the last 2 years, where the entire modality in which we are looking at the role of the principals have changed very drastically. The integration of the online, since the previous session was on the ICT, use of the ICT, there are many challenges which are there. Though we have seen that the use of the mobile had always been a very big challenge, but the pandemic has changed the entire connotation, that how we are using the ICT and in what ways we are going to utilize that. That also would have to be done basically in terms of that how we are creating the platforms where we are able to interact with the all the stakeholders at the different points of time. That is something which can also be looked into. So when we are talking about the learning culture, as I said, you have to be focusing more in terms of the stakeholders, which we just talked about. Also, the curriculum, which is going to be a very important part, because when we are talking about the relationship which has to be between all the pointers which are there on the slide, uh, the very important part would be in terms of the organizational arrangements. As a leader, आप कितना enabling environment रखते हैं. तो जैसे हमने बात की कि अगर हमारे लर्निंग लेवल्स जो हैं हमारे स्टूडेंट्स के वो बहुत अलग अलग हैं, तो आप उनको किस तरीके से फैसिलिटेट कर सकते हैं एट डिफरेंट पॉइंट्स ऑफ टाइम. यू कैन क्रिएट सम काइंड ऑफ जीरो पीरियड, जो बहुत सारे स्कूल्स में अभी भी हम लोग बात करते हैं. उसमें आप इस तरीके के फैसिलिटेट कर सकते हैं कि जैसे अगर कुछ बच्चों को किसी तरीके की कोई एक्स्ट्रा सपोर्ट चाहिए पढ़ने के लिए, या बहुत सी बार ऐसा होता है कि हमारे टीचर्स जो हैं वो हमें कुछ टीचर्स जो है वो, and since we know teacher shortage is a very major issue across the globe, आप कम टीचर्स के साथ भी इफेक्टिवली किस तरीके से अपने एनवायरनमेंट को और भी स्ट्रेंथन कर सकते हैं. सो ऑफ कोर्स आपका एक बहुत बड़ा कंपोनेंट होता है जिसमें आप एक when we are looking at the making and the forming the timetable, which is one of the very, very important issues. That timetable has to be executed in a very, very similar fashion. But even if you have the lack of the teachers, it does not mean that you will not be able to do it. So there has to be some kind of a sharing which can be done between the different schools, and what we have been proposing and looking forward that how these things can be executed also. क्योंकि जब हम स्कूल कॉम्प्लेक्स की अगर हम बात करें, जो कि उसमें आप जब अलग अलग स्कूल्स को जब एक पर्टिकुलर फ्रेमवर्क में जब आप लाते हैं, तो उस वाले फ्रेमवर्क में आपको सबसे ज्यादा आपका कोर फोकस होता है कि आपका जो जो आउटपुट है, बेसिकली इन द कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ दैट हाउ यू आर enabling the student into the classroom, that becomes very, very important. That will all depend on how many resources are there. As we all know that every school will have its limited resources. We do not have many resources in the schools also. How those resources are actually being generated with the help of the network of the different stakeholders, or the different activities which we can talk about in the due course of time. So if you are looking at this particular graph, I think it's important that this figure actually gives you that as a school culture, आपको बहुत सारे environments को देखना है. एक, आप कहाँ पे located है, आपको किस तरीके का support मिल रहा है सोसाइटी से. सेकेंडली, किस तरीके का आपका एक एनवायरनमेंट है जिसमें आपके जो टीचर्स हैं उन टीचर्स का की कैपेबिलिटी, because all the teachers are extremely capable in all the government schools, as we all know, because they all are coming through a very rigorous process ultimately. So because all the principals also begin as teachers, as we all know. So your core is the teacher. So when you are a teacher, how are you really looking into creating an environment which is very, very conducive? As a principal, I think the very important role is that, in terms of the rules and the policies, आप अपने rules और policies को बहुत intact रखते हुए भी आप उसमें किस तरीके से changes का एक scope रखते हैं, किस तरीके से आप एक innovation आप उसमें लाते हैं. That is something which you can share with the learning community. This is very important. आपका अगर documentation या sharing part अगर complete नहीं होता है, that could be in the form of a very short video also, as now we have many platforms through which we can really look into these kind of changes. Also, what kind of specific routines, as a in the school cultures are imbibed, are also very, very important. There are very clearly defined ways in terms of the parent teacher meeting, PTMs जो हम करते हैं regularly, उसमें आप पेरेंट्स को कितना इन्वॉल्व करते हैं फॉर स्ट्रेंथनिंग योर फोकस पॉइंट, दैट इज द लर्नर. क्योंकि हम लोग एक कक्षा में बात करते हैं कि हमारे पास 40 बच्चे हैं, 35 बच्चे हैं, और डिपेंड्स कि बहुत सारी जगह हमें ये भी पता है कि टीचर्स अगर कम होते हैं तो बहुत सी बार क्लास कंबाइन करके भी हम लोगों का जो नेशनल रेशियो है पीटीआर का वो मेंटेन नहीं होता है. व्हेन वी गो इनटू द फील्ड वी फाइंड दैट देयर आर वेरिएशंस. यू कैन आइदर हैव द मोर चिल्ड्रन और you can have less children if it is a small school. So there could be number of variations which are going to be there. Uh, the role of the principal is also to see that when we are creating a very conducive learning environment, we need to also take care that that there is a very concrete way in which you are able to look into the relationships between the different stakeholders. That also becomes very important. Are we really limiting ourselves only to a particular way in which we are looking at the teachers, or are we looking at the students or parents? Very often what we have found is that we become very, very prejudiced in the sense that where the school is located or what kind of background with which the child is coming. सबसे ज्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट बात जो है वो ये है कि आप एक डाइवर्स क्लासरूम में आप सारे स्टूडेंट्स को किस तरीके से एक समान स्तर पर लाके और फिर उसके बाद आप उनके साथ एक वार्तालाप करते हैं. ये एक बहुत लिमिटेड एरिया होता है जिसमें एक प्रिंसिपल का रोल बहुत क्रिटिकल है. इफ द प्रिंसिपल इज very open, the principal is much more approachable, then the learning environments would also be very, very conducive in your school. बहुत सारी चीजें तो जो आपको लगता है क्योंकि ये एक आपका जो एक्सपीरियंस है उस एक्सपीरियंस के बेसिस पे जब हम देखते हैं तो यू एज अ प्रिंसिपल व्हाट you were as a principal in the first year of your tenure and what you are after 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, you see that there is a very sea change even in your approaches. And specifically, and that is not only with the principals in any profession. When we are seeing that, what kind of learnings do you do, and also the platforms where you are actually sharing your experiences. These are the two very, very important components which needs to go hand in hand for creating a very conducive school culture where you're not only talking about the learning, but also you're talking about, how you're sustaining that particular school, because every school, as we all know, has a particular vision with which you all are working. So your vision of the school needs to be kept at the center stage, and specifically, every vision is actually going to talk about how you can be in a center for excellence, in the sense like you're giving the best of the results at the different points of time. So the very important part is when you are a practitioner, you have a very, very important role to play, and also to reflect. This is the very important point, is that आपने जो भी एक पर्टिकुलर काम जिस समय किया आप उसको रिफ्लेक्ट करेंगे जरूर कि अगर मैंने ये वाले क्योंकि आप सबके सब्जेक्ट्स अलग अलग हैं तो मैं किसी एक सब्जेक्ट का तो नाम नहीं लूंगी, लेकिन जब आप अपनी सब्जेक्ट स्पेसिफिक उससे जाते हैं तो दो चीजें बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. One is that you also have to always keep on looking at the changes and the new additions which are being done in your specific subjects. Not only in terms of, the curriculum I'm talking about, but also in the methodology that nowadays the secondary school children are also very well aware about many of the topics, many of the subjects due to the advent of the ICT. So जितना बच्चे का ज्यादा एक्सपोजर होता है वो बच्चा जो है उससे ज्यादा they come with more knowledge. So the expectation of a child has to be met at the different points of time. The other very important component as a practitioner is that we need to do the self-assessment. Very often, we are banking on that somebody will come observe our class, they will give the feedback to us. But I think most feedbacks are available within the classroom at two levels. One is that what is your knowledge base, content, the way you are delivering into the class. The second is that how comfortable the children are, how often they are asking that, we need this particular class much more, or we feel very happy when we are in a particular class. These are the things, which are also giving you some kind of a assessment in terms of how you are interacting with the children. uh, what kind of spaces do you create for children from the diverse learning levels? This is important. Since your one particular word into the class makes a very, very huge impact on the child, that we have always seen. And specifically in the senior secondary level, the other very important component is that since this is an adolescent age group which is with you, uh, you have to be very, very careful and also sensitive that whatever words you're using, for a particular child, that may be related to any kind of observation of you as a practitioner. It is important that, you have to make the things much more objective. The other is that, how do you visualize and improve? That happens again, as I said, would be depending on the experiences. We also need to think a little out of the box, what we always say to the, and specifically to the leaders. It's very challenging for all of you to look into the various aspects of not only the administration, but also teaching and learning at the different points of time. अ, आपका जो भी फीडबैक होता है, वो जो आप स्टेट लेवल पे देते हैं, आपका फीडबैक स्टूडेंट के लिए जो आप उनके पेरेंट्स को देते हैं, ये सारी चीजें बहुत मैटर करती हैं, दैट हाउ यू आर गिविंग some kind of a confidence to the child ultimately. And that is where, we find that you as a pedagogue and you as a leader, both the things have to be very, very consciously aligned well together. अगर वो आप उसको अलाइन नहीं कर पाते हैं, तो वो थोड़ा सा एक ट्रिकी प्रोसेस है. Since this is something which we already have published it in the form of the pedagogical leadership booklet, you all are aware of it. It's available on the NCSL website. You all can have access to it through the link which is already shared with you earlier by your organizer. So you have to see many of the aspects. So चार जो चीजें as a leader, you're doing is आप दूसरों को एक दिशा प्रदान कर रहे हैं, you're giving directions to the others. The other is that you are empowering. That is very important. As a leader, you need to empower the people who probably are, not so confident in taking some kind of responsibility or are not able to perform, to the desired levels what have been really set. The other is that how do you create a team for doing this? आपका team जितना strong होगा, and your team will not be again limited only to you as a teacher or your teachers, but all the stakeholders together, so that you are able to understand the context so well that you are able to bring the change as and when you want as a leader. And this is not by giving directions, but by creating a very good environment where there is a synergy in all this with all the stakeholders, and they all look forward, to your school, because जो भी स्कूल जहाँ कहीं पे भी हो, वो एक लीडर से ज्यादा जाना जाता है. तो आपका रोल बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. एक होता है स्कूल एग्जिस्ट कर रहा है, लेकिन वो स्कूल को आप किस तरीके से एक इतना इफेक्टिवली आप उसे रन कर रहे हैं कि देयर इज अ डिमांड बाय द पेरेंट्स दैट आई वांट माय चाइल्ड टू गो टू दिस पर्टिकुलर स्कूल. That is the environment which you have to create as a leader. And also, how do you influence others? This is very, very important. A leader should be looked up as a role model. How you are making yourself a role model, and that doesn't mean that, for being a role model you have to do some kind of a specific training. I think these are some of the things which you are showcasing based on your experience which you have gained during the years when you have been interacting with the different stakeholders at the different points of time. सो बहुत जरूरी है कि जब आप किसी को डायरेक्शन दे रहे हैं तो आप उसको सिर्फ डायरेक्शन नहीं दे रहे हैं, आप उसको हैंड होल्डिंग भी कर रहे हैं। और आप पहले एक प्लेटफॉर्म पे आप उनसे बात करेंगे डिफरेंट स्टेक होल्डर्स से कि उनकी क्या रिक्वायरमेंट है. So probably you can have some interaction with the students informally at different points of time. You can also have the interaction with the teachers separately. बहुत सी बार होता है कि कुछ teachers आपसे 1-to-1 मिलना चाहते हैं क्योंकि there are times where they need your support at the different levels. How do you as a leader look into the challenges or give them a solution as per your experience or as per your skills of working in a team? This is important. There are two levels again when we are looking, because we did talk about the professional learning communities. So the platforms which are created for the principals themselves, where they are sharing their experiences, it becomes very holistic to understand the situation. But as we know that the change in the context will also happen at the same point of time. So चूंकि बदलाव जो है वो निरंतर चल रहा है, चाहे वो समाज में हो, चाहे वो बच्चों की नॉलेज बेस का हो, चाहे वो टीचर्स के एक्सपीरियंस का हो, आप उस बदलाव को किस तरीके से अपने एक्सपीरियंस के साथ रखते हैं और उसको किस तरीके से यूज करते हैं एक टीम वर्क में. And when you are empowering others, again you are empowering each and every stakeholder again. So you are empowering your teachers who are in the school, you're empowering your students who are coming into your school for learning, and you're also giving a space to the parents and the community where they are able to come and express their concerns at the different points of time. Again, a lot of adaptability is also required when you're looking at the empowerment, because how we are really looking into the experiences of others and integrating it into your own structures and systems are also something which are very, very interestingly to be looked at. And the teamwork would also be looking at very, very different layers, where you also have to have a very, very democratic atmosphere. वहाँ ये नहीं है कि मैं लीडर हूँ, so I am more powerful, or the vice versa. It can happen with all the stakeholders I'm talking. बहुत सी बार ऐसा होता है कि जब आप टीचिंग लर्निंग के लिए बहुत से बार हम लोग कुछ एनजीओज की या कुछ प्रोग्राम्स को जब हम इंटीग्रेट करते हैं अपने स्कूल्स में, तो आपका एक पैरेलल स्ट्रक्चर भी साथ में चलता है कुछ चीजों को लेके. आप उसको किस तरीके से एक सिनर्जी के साथ आप उसको अपने स्कूल में रखते हैं, वो एक बहुत बड़ा रोल प्ले करता है आपकी लीडरशिप कैपेबिलिटी को टेस्ट करने के लिए. There are also, most of the issues, which we find in the schools in particular are much more related to the disciplinary things in terms of reaching on time, also taking care that, you become the role model, not only for the children who are into the school, but also you are a role model for your own teachers, where the teachers really look up to you, that you will be there to support them or to encourage them for their professional learning, for their any kind of enhancement which they would like to do, either academically or they need some support at the different levels. So as we know that, we don't need to give any incentives. The real incentives are in the form of your behavior. And as a leader, when a leader appreciates any particular stakeholder, it goes a lot of in favor of creating a very good learning school culture, which is going to be much more important. The other is that आपका हर स्कूल का एक विजन है, मिशन है, आपका एक गोल है जो आपने एक सेट किया हुआ है। उसके अलावा आपने एक एनुअल डेवलपमेंट प्लान की हम बात करते हैं, स्कूल डेवलपमेंट प्लान व्हाट वी कॉल। सो द एसडीपी इज प्रिपेयर्ड अगेन। आप जब एसडीपी की बात करते हो तो उसमें भी आपके सारे स्टेक होल्डर्स जो हैं उनकी एक सिनर्जी जो है, दैट इज व्हाट वी ऑल आर लुकिंग इनटू। So I think as a leader, as a practitioner, and as a pedagogue, because you have multiple hats, which you all really keep yourself with, how do you really create a very good synergy in the different roles which you have to play as a leader? So right from directing others to empowering others to working with others and influencing with others, these are the layers within which you have to ensure that your role as a pedagogue is reflected, and that will only be seen only once it is translated into the assessment part. As we all know that we can do many things, but after all we may be doing the best of the things as the leaders. We have the best of the teachers in our school, we have created the best of the environment in the school, but still if you are not able to give the best of the result, then that is where the issue comes. As we all know, that the whole concept of doing the training programs with the particular cadres are basically to give them an avenue where they can reflect back and also see that what they are doing probably are what are the ways in which they can really create the new avenues in which they are able to bring in the change. So as I said that uh, जो एक स्कूल लीडर का एक्सपीरियंस है, आप उस एक्सपीरियंस को किस तरीके से ट्रांसलेट करते हैं आपके एक्शन के थ्रू, वो ज्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट है। और चूंकि जो फोकस है हर स्कूल का वो है कि हम एक गुणवत्ता के लिए काम कर रहे हैं, और गुणवत्ता जो है वो आपकी फिजिकल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर से ही नहीं देखी जाती, बट हाउ यू आर परफॉर्मिंग, how the children are feeling. Do the children really come to the school they enjoy? And specifically, they are when they are at the crossroads, specifically when they are the adolescent, how does the school give them the support in learning, teaching and learning? तो दो बहुत महत्वपूर्ण मुद्दे जो होते हैं वो ये कि एक तो बच्चों का सिलेबस जो है वो एकदम से बहुत हैवी हो जाता है, and everything boils down only to academics, especially in the secondary school. How do you weave it into your own plan of action, and what are the strategies you adapt as a school principal? These are the points which needs a very very deep reflections. It's not that you're just not doing it. I'm just stating कि आप जो कर रहे हैं आप उसमें थोड़ा सा रिफ्लेक्शन लाए, आप जो कर रहे हैं उसमें थोड़ा सा एक सारगर्भिता होनी चाहिए कि जितने भी स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं आप एक किसी प्लेटफॉर्म पे या अलग अलग प्लेटफॉर्म्स पे भी अगर आप उनसे बातचीत कर रहे हैं, उनसे जो आपके की टेक अवेज हैं उनको आप एग्जीक्यूट किस तरीके से कर रहे हैं, दीज आर द पॉइंट्स व्हिच यू नीड टू लुक इनटू. सो हाउ डू यू प्रैक्टिस दिस? So one is, of course, we know that you do have the teacher professional development concept which is there in the context of the in-service, and many studies have been done in the Indian context where we find that in-service teacher training programs बहुत सारी जगह पे routinely होते हैं, but if you can really think of creating again, this is where the role of the leader comes very very empathetically, in the sense that आप जो सब्जेक्ट एरियाज आपको लग रहा है जिसमें आपको आपके स्टूडेंट्स बहुत अच्छा नहीं परफॉर्म कर रहे ड्यू टू एनी रीजन, आई थिंक आर द पॉइंट्स व्हिच यू कैन लुक इनटू. How do you really then focus only on those particular subjects or those particular areas where you need to really put your focus on? The other is that how are you really creating the innovations? And innovations, as I said, there are no set guidelines for the innovations, which we all know, because where the children, for instance, are not coming to the school and you're creating an environment where the child comes and enjoys in the school, that itself is an innovation, because the innovations are always contextual. They are not out of the box. How do you create a very good learning atmosphere into the school, a learning culture, and also you being a teacher yourself, how are you really creating the atmospheres like this? How do you lead the teaching learning process? That is also very important. तो बहुत सारे जो principles हैं, and we know since the National Center for School Leadership has many of the anecdotes, so I'm not going to talk about it because there is a change, which you require within yourself, and the self becomes very important. That is something which you need to really focus on. We did talk about, addressing the diversity, but it is important that the diversity also means that, how are you creating the inclusive learning culture also. Now, inclusivity, as we know, has the different ways in which we are looking at it. It not only talks about the children with special needs, and this is also the time where we need to take care of the gender. We need to take care of the children with special needs. We also need to take care of the children who are coming from the very poor background, and the disadvantaged groups, so that you as a leader are creating that kind of a inclusive culture into your school, where each and every child becomes very comfortable when they are coming to the school. That is a very important part of the school leader, which probably goes unnoticed. तो हम लोग जब बोलते हैं इंक्लूसिव कल्चर है स्कूल में, तो वो इंक्लूसिविटी सिर्फ एक किसी स्टेक होल्डर के साथ नहीं आती है. वो इंक्लूसिविटी आपकी राइट फ्रॉम द बॉटम अप अप्रोच होनी चाहिए. तो वो चाहे आपका क्योंकि सबसे पहला जो प्रॉब्लम होता है वो कम्युनिटी एक्सेप्टेंस का होता है, व्हेन द चाइल्ड, इफ द चाइल्ड इज belonging to a particular category. How do you break those stereotypes as a leader? And that will create a lot of, positive environment into the school where the child becomes very comfortable. And the other very important point is, which is already written on the slide, is that how much you are creating the self-awareness. एक तो होता है आप दूसरों को तो बोल रहे हैं कि आप अवेयर हो जाइए, आप ये वाला काम करिए, आप इस तरीके से करिए, लेकिन आप अपने चेंजेस क्या ला रहे हैं? आप एज अ लीडर, आप हर 6 महीने में जब आप अपना सेल्फ रिव्यू कर रहे हैं in terms of your participation in creating a very conducive learning environment into the school, how you have changed your methodology. आपने क्या नए जो, और हर बार हम जैसे बोलते हैं कि आपको अपने जो मेथड्स होते हैं वो हमें हर बार कुछ अलग तरीके अपनाने पड़ते हैं, अदरवाइज यू बिकम वेरी प्रेडिक्टेबल बाय अदर्स, दैट दे नो कि अच्छा इनका एक पैटर्न है, वो इस तरीके से ही काम करेंगे, इस तरीके से ही बात करेंगे, या इस तरीके से एक्शन लेंगे. So you have to be very unpredictable also as a leader to create that kind of a very conducive environment where, you are seeing things in with a lot of objectivity in it. So this is important, that how you are bringing it into your school practice. The other is that, since we did talk about the school improvement plan or the school development plan, as a leader आप उसको एक constantly अपने दिमाग में रखिए, क्योंकि as a leader you have to devise your school improvement plans every year, and there are specific areas on which you focus on. So it could be related to teachers at time, it could be related to synergizing your school mission with probably you are not able to achieve at that point of time. And also, how do you practice the pedagogical leadership? As I said, by creating the professional learning communities, this will be something which you can do very, very interestingly and in a very, very collaborative manner. This is something which probably is going to give you some kind of more energy when you are all together, and especially on deliberating on the specific topics. The other very big limitation which becomes over the years, of your experience, your means like any of the professional experiences, we feel that we know everything, we know the methods, and हम हमारा जितना knowledge है हम उसमें अपना काम चला सकते हैं। पर जैसे मैंने बोला कि जो बदलाव आ रहे हैं, आप उन बदलाव को साथ में लेकर किस तरीके से काम करेंगे, उसके ऊपर जो है कोई रूल बुक नहीं होती है। दैट यू हैव टू एक्सपीरियंस एंड ऑल्सो शेयर। एंड देयरफॉर जब अ, 1 साल हो जाता है, 2 साल हो जाते हैं, तो आप एक पर्टिकुलर ट्रेनिंग की इसीलिए बात करते हैं कि आप कुछ एरियाज ऐसे हैं जिसमें आपको लगता है कि हमें रीस्किल होना है। So you do have the skills. Training programs are only sharpening your own skills because you're taking a break from your routine and then you're reflecting on what you have to do. This is something which needs to be kept in mind when we are looking at the academic leadership. The other, we do know that when we are talking about the uh, areas of action, the first action is that uh, you have to involve everyone who are actually fulfilling and creating a vision for your particular school, and also how that vision is shared by all the stakeholders. I'm not going to read the slide. I think you can all see it yourself, because if you as a leader, if you're not able to have a vision with which you are going to see your school in the coming years, then you probably have a strong limitation in terms of creating a very, very conducive environment in your school. It's important that you have to look into the collective interest of all the stakeholders at the different points of time. That is something which we need to see. One is, आप एक विजुअलाइज कर रहे हैं कि मुझे इस तरीके से स्कूल में ये वाले बदलाव लाने हैं, लेकिन आप टीचिंग और लर्निंग के लिए आप उस बदलाव को जो आप सोच रहे हैं उसको एग्जीक्यूट किस तरीके से कर पा रहे हैं, आपने क्या उसको एग्जीक्यूशन के लिए क्या प्रोसेस आपने लिया है, आपने उस जो एग्जीक्यूशन के लिए आपके जो बाकी स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं उनको किस तरीके से आप साथ लेकर चल रहे हैं। ये बहुत जरूरी है कि आप अपने आप में ये प्रश्न बार बार पूछे, जो हम बोलते हैं व्हाई, हाउ, दीज आर द ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम थिंग्स, दैट व्हाई यू आर डूइंग इट, how will you do it, and where are you going to lead. That is something which you have to constantly keep on thinking into your mind at the different levels. सो वन इज कि आप एक रोड मैप भी क्रिएट करें, जो आप करते ही हैं डेफिनेटली, लेकिन आप उसको किस तरीके से एग्जीक्यूट कर रहे हैं वो ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है एज अ लीडर. दिस अ वेरी ह्यूज चैलेंज, आई नो. इट्स नॉट वेरी इजी विद द डे टू डे एक्टिविटीज, जहां आपको रिपोर्टिंग भी करनी है, आपको स्कूल का डिसिप्लिन भी देखना है, आपको स्कूल में टीचर्स आ रहे हैं नहीं वो भी देखना है, स्टूडेंट्स का कितना पार्टिसिपेशन है हर एक्टिविटी में. एवरीथिंग इज अ पार्ट ऑफ द प्रिंसिपल. इट्स अ वेरी ह्यूज चैलेंज. And therefore, your self-reflection is the only thing which will help you in sustaining yourself and the school as well. So these are the ways in which, a leader can really look into it. The other is, बहुत जरूरी है कि आपका एक personal vision भी होना चाहिए. So you are not doing only, and that is where we know the leadership styles vary, because आप जब स्कूल प्रिंसिपल बनते हैं, आपका एक अपना विजन होता है, आपका एक तरीका है काम करने का, आप किस तरीके से डे टू डे एक्टिविटी की जो आपकी चीजें हैं, चाहे वो टीचिंग एंड लर्निंग की हो, या आपका एजुकेशन सिस्टम जो हम बात कर रहे हैं कि अभी अगर हम बदलाव की बात करेंगे, आप उसके लिए कितने तैयार हैं और कितना आप उसके बारे में जानते हैं. दोनों चीजें बहुत जरूरी होती है. तो आप अगर नॉलेज बेस और इंफॉर्मेशन बेस्ड दोनों, जो कि एक कॉम्बिनेशन होता है लीडर का, दैट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू बी रियली maintained throughout your tenure when you're in the school, either you're a leader or not, because every person is a leader in himself and herself. This is what we believe. Everybody has the skills with which you can bring the change, and that is what we are looking at it. So you have to be, first is you have to be self-aware. This is one very important point. Which are the areas? Rest of the things would definitely fall into the place once you're doing it. The other very important point, as you can see, is that we have spoken about it earlier also. तो सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट जो मुझे लगता है कि दैट हाउ डू यू इनिशिएट द इनोवेशन इन द स्कूल. एंड उसके लिए इनोवेशन तभी हो सकता है जब आपको पता हो कि आपके स्कूल को आप बहुत अच्छे से जानते हैं, कि उस स्कूल में क्या कमी है, और उस स्कूल की जो भी कमी है चाहे वो किसी भी तरीके की हो, आप एज अ लीडर कैसे इंश्योर करते हैं कि वो आपके आउटकम को बिल्कुल भी किसी भी तरीके से इन्फ्लुएंस नहीं करे। तो हो सकता है कि आपकी कुछ स्कूल एनवायरनमेंट में कुछ भी प्रॉब्लम हो, लेकिन अगर आपके स्टूडेंट्स बहुत अच्छा रिजल्ट दे रहे हैं, तो समवेयर देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ क्रेडिट व्हिच गोज टू द लीडर ultimately. You are not looking at only the enabling factors. Let me tell you, बहुत आसान होता है कि चलिए हमने बोल दिया हमारे पास सब चीजें हैं। क्या सब चीजें होने के बाद भी आप बहुत अच्छा परफॉर्मेंस दे पाते हैं स्कूल का? कहीं ना कहीं तो हम खुद से ये पूछते हैं कि कहाँ पे हम और कुछ ऐड करें। तो इसीलिए हम लोग जब पेडागोजिकल लीडरशिप इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, क्योंकि अल्टीमेटली आपका सिर्फ एक एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव पार्ट नहीं, हम एक एकेडमिक पार्ट असेस कर रहे हैं इसमें। आप किस तरीके से उसे एनहांस करेंगे, और किस तरीके से आप एक जो भी आपके यहाँ नवाचार हो रहा है किसी भी तरीके का, किसी भी स्कूल में, अगर आपका एक प्रोफेशनल लर्निंग कम्युनिटी बनी हुई है आपके प्रिंसिपल्स की, विच आई एम श्योर बहुत सारे प्रिंसिपल्स तो ऑन देयर ओन for their own learning they do create and share things, they create their own platforms. So important is that you are doing both the things. One is आप अपने लिए भी एक अपॉर्चुनिटी क्रिएट करें जहां पे आप एक टीम वर्क की जब आप बात कर रहे हैं और शेयरिंग की जब आप बात करें, तो यू आर अ लिटिल ओपन इन शेयरिंग योर ओन एक्सपीरियंस. इट्स नॉट दैट you are having the best of the experience and the other is having the worst. It doesn't happen like that. We, in every context, you will find something very interesting which you can learn and be aware of. And this is what is the role of the leader, is that the leader is leading in spite of all the odds or in spite of all the best, and you have to give a particular outcome. So you have to ensure that even if you have less of the input in your schools, your right outcome is the maximum. और इसमें ही आपका रोल जो है वो बहुत बहुत क्रिटिकल हो जाता है. So definitely you have to always look into creating an atmosphere and opportunity for students in particular, that they are so much influenced by the teaching. Even if you take one class with your class, with your students, and the way you are dealing with the students in the classroom along with sorry, the teachers, it's important that that's something you're giving a vision to the child. um, you are illustrating the child through your behavior, that how you're going to look at it. So I think there are many of the things which you have to do on your own, and which you can do on your own, for creating a very encouraging environment in the school. So um, you have to develop a very shared understanding of teaching and learning with all the stakeholders, which we just discussed. uh, and also you have to be very careful that um, when you become a role model, you don't say that this is the best model. This is also very important for the leaders, why I'm saying that. आपको ऐसा लगता है कि जो मैं जिस तरीके से कर रहा हूँ या कर रही हूँ वो सबसे आइडियल तरीके से हो रहा है, ऐसा जरूरी नहीं है, क्योंकि हर टीचर का एक अपना स्टाइल है पढ़ाने का, एक अपना स्टाइल होता है उसको लेसन प्लान एग्जीक्यूट करने का. तो लेसन प्लान तो हम सब बनाते हैं, लेकिन उसका एग्जीक्यूशन आप कितना इफेक्टिवली कर रहे हैं एज अ लीडर, एंड ऑल्सो नॉट इन्फ्लुएंसिंग द अदर टीचर्स टू डू इट. Your influences should be that the teachers should be engaging the students, not to change their styles as per what you believe in. This is important. टीचिंग लर्निंग प्रोसेसेस का जो है वो बहुत एक important रोल होता है. How do you really build the capacities of using that data? That is also very important. So probably when you're looking at the results of your unit test which you take, because usually होता है कि हम लोग as leaders हम लोग सिर्फ एनुअल रिपोर्ट पे ही, या एनुअल जब आपका रिजल्ट आता है हम उस समय ज्यादा अलर्ट होते हैं. पर अगर एक प्रोसेस हमारा हो जिसमें हम बहुत एक कंटिन्यूस तरीके से हर 2 महीने या 3 महीने में भी एक इंटरनल रिव्यू करें, specifically with the teachers, because as I said, it's a team which is working, that helps a lot in first creating a very comfortable environment in your school itself, and then also bringing in the other schools at the same platform to understand whether these issues which your school is facing are also experienced by the other schools themselves. So it's important that we are looking at the different layers at the different points of time. The other is that very important point is that you also have to take into confidence all the stakeholders, and specifically the parents and community plays a very vital part. जब हम एक जब हम एक pedagogical leadership की बात कर रहे हैं, तो वो बहुत limited नहीं है वहां तक. It has to go a little beyond that. So how are we looking and developing that? दूसरी चीज की जो भी चेंजेस होते हैं पॉलिसी में, तो आपको एक अपने आप को एक अपडेट के साथ रखना. और बहुत अब तो बहुत सिंपल हो गया है, बहुत आसान हो गया है कि आप वेबसाइट खोलिए और आपको सारा इंफॉर्मेशन मिल जाता है, आप जो भी आप देखना चाहते हैं. सो इट्स इम्पोर्टेंट दैट यू आर कीपिंग योर सेल्फ अप टू डेट with reference to any of the changes which are happening. फॉर इंस्टेंस, अब चूंकि पिछले 2 साल में पैंडेमिक ने हमें एक चीज जो सिखाई वो ये कि हम किस तरीके से ऑनलाइन टीचिंग को इंटीग्रेट कर रहे हैं, और उस ऑनलाइन टीचिंग के जो लेसन्स हैं हम उससे क्या बेस्ट निकाल के ले रहे हैं. दिस इज समथिंग विच यू हैव टू रियली लुक इनटू. When we are looking into our past experiences and integrate it into your current learning experience, that gives you a lot of new ideas that how you can support any kind of change which you want to bring into the school. तो आप बहुत सारे टीचिंग लर्निंग रेमेडीज जो है बच्चों के लिए या कुछ प्लेटफॉर्म्स क्रिएट कर सकते हैं, which can be the online learning platforms also for them, which may not be a very formal part, but these are the informal structures which can also be thought of with the teachers and with the parents consensus, that you can really bring that learning atmosphere to be more vibrant into your schools. So the very important part will be played by the teachers and the parents for creating the best of the pedagogical practices. Very often what happens is we feel कि सिर्फ स्कूल की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है पढ़ाना. ये भी एक माइंडसेट की बात होती है कि आप किस तरीके से आप उन चेंजेस को अंदर चेंज कर रहे हैं अपने स्कूल में. I can understand. I think Rajni, my time is over, but can I take another 5 minutes to wind up?
Yes, ma'am, you can have.
I'll just wind up in 5 minutes because I know the time of the principals is very important. They also have to attend to many other things. So the other, crucial areas which I did talk about and mention is that how do you build the inclusive culture? This is very important. तो आपको एक acceptance जो है as a leader, वो अपने environment में create करनी है. So that can be acceptance for the children who are coming from the diverse background, acceptance for the children for giving them the space to cope up and then again rise high, because and also for the teachers at the same point of time. It may happen that at times we find that the teachers are also a little more restricted due to their personal or the professional commitments at times. As a leader, the very important point in creating a very conducive learning environment is that you must have the inclusive policies and structures in place. आप उसको किस तरीके से डिवाइस करते हैं, किस तरीके से आप उसको एग्जीक्यूट करते हैं, ये आपका खुद का एक बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट रोल होगा. And similarly, it goes for the teaching practices or the support for the student learning. These are the areas which needs to be always consciously being thought of. This is important. And your role as a leader is one, as I did talk about it, but this is just to reflect back upon that, how are you really knowing yourself, that is the self which we have been talking about in the all the leadership component, that you need to know yourself much better than anybody else. uh, and your capability, आपकी क्या स्किल्स हैं, आप उन स्किल्स को प्लीज इस्तेमाल करिए, ताकि आपका जो स्कूल का एक विजन है उसको फुलफिल करने में आपका एक बहुत important role रहे. You also have to do the self-assessment, which again, as I said, should be done with the very short, जैसे हम बोलते हैं short term ज़्यादा करना चाहिए, कि within 2 months, 3 months, जब आपका one phase of learning है, तो आप उसको किस तरीके से execute कर रहे हैं. The other is, as I said, the feedback is a very important component for leaders. And that is where we usually lack. We don't like to take feedbacks because we think we are the persons who are knowing everything. So I think वो एक जो self, से जब हद तक हम ऊपर नहीं जाते हैं, तब तक वो change हम नहीं ला पाते हैं. Also, we have been talking about maintaining a diary for the teachers, for instance, even for the principals, we say that you need to develop a personal development plan, that where you're not looking at yourself, but you're also looking at the institution, that is your school. आप उसमें एक सिनर्जी जब तक आपकी नहीं होगी, तब तक आप एक बहुत अच्छे, अगर हम लेवल की बात करें, तो उसमें वो चेंज लाने में बहुत मुश्किल होती है. The other is that how do you assure the student learning, जो हमने अभी बहुत बार इसके बारे में बात की है. तो आप स्टूडेंट्स, चूंकि आप सेकेंडरी स्कूल के प्रिंसिपल्स हैं, तो they want to know much more, the students. How are you enhancing the concept of the new concept? एक बहुत important component होता है एक resource room का, जो हम हर स्कूल में बात करते हैं. वो रिसोर्स रूम, लाइब्रेरी एक अलग चीज है, लेकिन आप वो रिसोर्स रूम एक एरिया ऐसा क्रिएट कर पाए जहां पे कभी आप भी जाएं एज अ लीडर, as a principal, it is going to create a very different kind of a vibration to your school, I can tell you that. Also, the rest of the things which I have written here on the slide are something which you all can read, but I think the very important component is the passion. A leader has to showcase the passion for learning, himself or herself. जब तक आप वो portray नहीं करेंगे, because you are the role model for the principal, for the entire school, you are the role model कि कहाँ पे कम्युनिटी जो है वो आपको एक तरीके से आपके साथ भागीदार बने उस बदलाव को लाने के लिए. That is important what we are looking at. And also, not to limit only to the teaching and learning, as we said, because when pedagogy we talk about, we limit ourselves only to the curriculum. But I think also the new areas which you have to look into. So now there is no such demarcation in extracurricular or vocational. एक ये बदलाव भी बहुत कॉन्शियसली, जो हमारे अंदर एज ए लीडर तो हमेशा ही रहता है, बिकॉज द लीडर इज यूजुअली कॉन्शियस कि बच्चा जो है वो लिमिटेड नहीं रह सकता सिर्फ एक तरीके से, पर बहुमुखी उसकी प्रतिभा को हम किस तरीके से वो करें, ज्यादा एक्सेलरेट करें. आई थिंक दीज आर द थिंग्स व्हिच वी नीड टू लुक इनटू. And the whole focus should be, now I'm just ending, this is my last slide, that we have been talking about the 21st century skills. As a leader, are you aware that what are these skills? How are you going to execute it into your classrooms? And this is something which we need to really look into at the different levels. And then also see that, the changes which we are actually propagating and saying, does it really happen in the same fashion or not? This is something we need to look into. So I think I'm going to end my presentation with these my brief comments, specifically to look forward that you really would be reflecting yourself and your skills with a different lens now after this session, and not to only limit yourself into a pedagogue in one sense, but as a leader it has to go a little beyond that. So I think with that, thank you so much, Dr. Rajni, for really giving me this platform of interacting. Though it is not an interaction, what I feel it had been a monologue throughout. But I think before I go, I would be very happy to see the faces of the all the principals. If you can please switch on your cameras if possible. Some of you I could see in between also. So thank you so much, everyone. And we look forward for more deliberations. Thank you. Thank you so much, Meenakshi.
मीनाक्षी
Thank
मैम
you
ने
so
कैमरा
much.
ऑन किया है। कुलदीप जी, आप कुछ पूछना चाहते हैं?
No, madam, I am agree
आपका
with
माइक
your
एक्चुअली ऑन
ideas.
था। ओम प्रकाश जी, आपका मैसेज आया था, वी रेड की हम कोशिश करेंगे पीपीटी भेजने की। किसी का कोई सवाल है मोना मैम से?
आई थिंक हम लोग जो भी करते हैं नीपा में वो आपके सपोर्ट से ही करते हैं, यू नो, ऑल द प्रिंसिपल्स. सो थैंक यू सो मच फॉर बीइंग अ पार्ट ऑफ इट एंड आल्सो मेकिंग अस लर्न थ्रू योर जर्नी. That helps us a lot. Thank you so much.
रोशनी मैम, आप कुछ कहना चाह रही हैं? मोना मैम, थैंक यू सो मच। और जैसे मैंने कहा था, आई एम रिपीटिंग इट, वी आर fond of your speaking and your presentation. So we are grateful that we had this chance to listen you, and it was a wonderful presentation, ma'am. Thank you so much. And रोशनी मैम, हाँ जी, प्लीज बताइए, आप कुछ कहना चाहती हैं?
I think everybody is waiting for the lunch.
Yeah, actually, ma'am, they all are on in the offices, their respective.
I know that.
office.
I can see them.
So-
They all are doing and attending to their requirements, which is more important.
And the board exams are big. They have big pressure of board exams in their school.
I agree.
वर्कलोड है इन लोगों का, आई अंडरस्टैंड देयर सिचुएशन टू, तो इसलिए इनसे मुझे वो शिकायत रहती नहीं है। बट मैं रिक्वेस्ट जरूर कर सकती हूँ हमारे प्रिंसिपल से, प्लीज ट्राई टू कम्युनिकेट व्हेनेवर यू फील फ्री और यू हैव लिटिल टाइम, सो इट इज गुड फॉर द सेशन।
आप इनका ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम जो है, या मैं ये सजेशन दे रही हूँ कि आप इनका ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम इन महीनों में मत रखा करिए. दे आर टू बिजी. February, March.
Ma'am, last year we organized this plan in the March. So yeah, that time also they all were busy. So we because they are not allowed to take the off for the training. उनको वो ऑफिस से ही करनी पड़ती है, और प्रिंसिपल्स पे बहुत ज्यादा वर्कलोड, मतलब मैं जितना हरियाणा में अभी देख रही हूँ, उन पे वो वर्कलोड मैं किसी भी टाइम पे कराऊंगी वो रहेगा. इवन वी आई वुड लाइक टू शेयर, we have organized many trainings in physical modes here. 2 weeks का हमने ट्रेनिंग करवाया है, हम लोगों को यहाँ बुलाते हैं. तो मैंने देखा है कि उनको ट्रेनिंग के बीच से भी इस तरीके से मैसेज आ जाते हैं, आप अभी आइए डीओ ऑफिस, आप अभी स्कूल आइए, स्कूल में कुछ हो जाता है तो वो भाग रहे हैं. तो यस, यू आर राइट, योर सजेशन इज राइट. बट मैंने पिछले जितने भी, हमने अगस्त में ट्रेनिंग शुरू किया था, और पिछले साल मार्च में ये ट्रेनिंग था, और इस साल हमने थोड़ा जल्दी करा दिया, फैब में 1 महीने का अंतर है. लेकिन वो उस मार्च में भी बिजी थे, वो अगस्त में भी बिजी थे, बीच में हमारे यहाँ पे पंचायत इलेक्शन हुए, तो इतने दे ऑल नो, सम आर फ्रॉम नू, तो उनको वहां इलेक्शन ड्यूटी के लिए जाना पड़ा. फिर हम 2 बैचेस में उनको एडजस्ट किया. तो ये हर जगह से हमें सजेशन मिलता है, बट ये मेरा एक्सपीरियंस है कि दे आर सोल्जर इज never on leave, so they are soldiers.
And I agree. I totally agree, and especially the school principals are never. That I know for sure.
Yes, ma'am. तो मैं वो इनकी तरफ से बोल रही हूँ कि ये सोल्जर्स हैं, एक आर्मी है ये हमारे पास. तो मैं तो बता रही हूँ, अगस्त से मार्च तक का मेरा एक्सपीरियंस है पिछले 3 साल का. मुझे कोई मंथ सूटेबल नहीं लगा, इसलिए हमने सोचा ऐसा ही अगस्त में भी था, ऐसा ही फैब में भी है, तो लेट्स ऑर्गेनाइज. और हम, क्योंकि इसी वजह से हमने लाइव रखे हैं, हम जितने भी ट्रेनिंग्स फिजिकल मोड में भी कराएं, ऑनलाइन कराएं, हम सेशन को लाइव करते हैं. और many of them, I won't say all, after the training or whenever they come to SCRT or share with me, they watch the videos.
Okay.
तो ऐसा
so
है
at least you are creating some kind of a reference base also for them. Yeah.
Yes, तो हम इनको इसी वजह, this is the only reason हम लाइव करते हैं, कि बीच में कोई काम आ जाता है तो हमें थोड़ा ये होता है कि वो अटेंड नहीं कर पा रहे, वो फिजिकल मोड में भी चल रहा है इनके साथ. So ma'am, thank you. On behalf of STRT, all the participants present or not present at the movement, we are so thankful to you, and it was great to listen you. Thank you, Mona ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and all the best to all the principals who have attended. Thank you so much. We look for the change. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And thank you, participants. Now, for now, you can leave. We will meet at 1:45 PM. जैसे मैंने आपको बताया था, अगला हमारा सेशन एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव एस्पेक्ट पे होगा. That will be beneficial for you. रिटायर्ड डिप्टी सेक्रेटरी आपको पनिशमेंट रूल्स पे सेशन देंगे. एंड आपके इंटरेस्ट का भी रहता है, एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव है. So I'm expecting more participation. Thank you.